Good afternoon, everybody. It is the end of our Ask Me Anything hour, so I'm going to answer your questions now. Thank you so much for sending in all these questions. They're really interesting for me to be able to answer. And this is what we do every Tuesday and Thursday from 12:45 to 1. We come on live, we answer your questions. Of course, you don't have to watch it live. You can watch us later, but if you have questions, you can type them in here now, or you can email us at info@strongandhealth.com sending in these questions. We had a great event last week. Dr. Schipple from Endocrine Wellness came down and we did a talk at the 4-day weekend theater. And we had a lot of questions submitted, and we're going to answer those questions now on this Ask Me Anything. There were so many, we're just going to limit them to 5 every time because we have some other questions we want to blend in and make sure we're getting everybody's questions answered. So I'm going to jump right into those. The first one we had from the event that we did not get to answer is, what is the best source of vitamin D? And I love this question because I actually just came in from standing in the sun. All my poor friends up north, I know that that is not possible for you right now. So really important that we talk about ways that you're getting your vitamin D, and especially for those of you who do spend time in the winter months where you may be prone to that seasonal affective disorder where you start to get a little blue in the winter months. Vitamin D is something to really pay attention to. So number one is sunlight. And if you can get sunlight, get it. 20 minutes to 30 minutes a day without sunscreen is what your body's going to be able to produce the most that it needs. So let me talk about foods though, for those of you who cannot get that. Of course, your seafood is going to be one of the best. So tuna, mackerel, cod, salmon, and even eggs can give you some. I was actually kind of looking it over to make sure like we're getting enough of it. And I found it interesting that about 3 ounces of salmon should satisfy over 100% of your daily need. Now, of course, we want to talk about quality. You want to have good, healthy salmon. You want it wild caught and making sure that you're getting the best possible you can. But getting about 3 ounces of salmon every day is going to be doing a lot to help you with your vitamin D. Now, there's still going to be a question, well, I eat salmon every day and my vitamin D levels are still low. There's a lot more to this, and again, it's never just one thing. But if we're wanting to make sure we're getting the vitamin D in there in the first place, this is what we're going to do. The other things that we want to talk about, of course, are magnesium. A lot of association with people not getting enough magnesium to make sure that their vitamin D levels are appropriate. And you're not going to get the magnesium from these fish, so you do have to blend in things that have magnesium, but think about that. We would, mackerel, actually a cup of mackerel will give you about 350%. So mackerel's a great fish for that. Cod liver oil, only a tablespoon, should give you about 100% of your vitamin D need for the day. The last one to talk about is actually egg yolks. I know that it's not a great source for it, but if you get a really good healthy egg yolk, you're going to get about 10% of your vitamin D need for the day in that. And I want to address this because I just had a gentleman send me his diet and say, hey Dustin, how can I improve upon this? And he's using egg beaters and egg whites only. And I'm telling you, there's so much value in a good, healthy egg yolk. So many people are so afraid of eating that egg yolk still from old information that was saying that, well, it's going to cause your cholesterol to go up and cholesterol is bad. That is no longer an acceptable truth. We really need to understand that egg yolk, when it's a good organic egg yolk, is a really good quality whole food nutrition source. It's almost a perfect food in a lot of ways because it gives you so much nutrition. So if you're going to be eating eggs, if you're one of those people who do it, make sure you're getting the yolk in there because it's really helpful. In fact, I actually went this week to get my blood work done so that I can take a look at everything, make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing. And I was really shocked to hear some of the people working in the hospital, as I was talking to them about nutrition, that were afraid to eat avocados because of its impact on cholesterol, saying that, well, the fat, won't that make my cholesterol go up? So I find it really important that I continue to send this message out there to people to understand that eating an avocado, to think that that's bad for your heart, is really something we need to help work in re-educating people and understanding that there are healthy fats and there are unhealthy fats, and an avocado, an egg, these are fats that are going to be very helpful. I know that there was that documentary out there where they would drop the cigarettes next to the eggs saying that they were just as bad, and that was unfortunately terrible information to be sending to people. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody one-on-one about why I think that's terrible information, but egg yolks can be a very good source. Now, there are people out there who are vegetarian or plant-based, and I totally respect and understand that. The thing I'll always say to somebody who is that even in the blue zones, the places where people have the lowest rates of obesity, lowest rates of heart disease, cancer, they still have about 5% of their food coming from animal sources, so eggs and fish. So keep that in mind, because I know all of the sources I just talked about are animal sources of vitamin D. So if you're not eating those things, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that. And supplementing is not my favorite way to do it, but if you have to do it, then you have to do it if you're not going to get it from other sources. Okay, so a lot to be said about vitamin D. It is incredibly important, but we have to be mindful if you're constantly doing these things and your vitamin D levels stay low, then of course we have to look at what are the other pieces that are missing. Is it the magnesium piece? Do you have a metal toxicity? Sometimes heavy metals, in particular cadmium, can be really high in people who are having a really hard time getting their vitamin D levels up. I know a really interesting doctor in Southern California who has seen this a lot across the board. He's like, we got plenty of sunlight. We're getting tons of it. I'm still seeing lots of low levels of vitamin D. And one of the things that he found correlatively was he found a lot of people had a problem with heavy metals. So there could be a lot of things that could be keeping that vitamin D level low. Keep an eye on it though, it's really important. Okay, next question was, how can you balance all of these hormones without all the blood work and lab testing? And then there's a $ plus after that. I totally get that. Labs can be expensive, and in my practice, I really do my best to try to help people find ways that they can get the effects that they need without having to do lab testing if it's not necessary. Now, labs are great. It's really important. I just went and got my own done. It's really important to know what's going on. But if that's something that is a concern for you is the cost, well, unfortunately, the answer has to be that you just have to start doing everything right as best as you can. You have to just make those choices that are going to be supporting your body, the things that you know. And then you have to be a true detective and really start listening to your body and really taking in all the information, because your body's going to give you a lot of different signs and symptoms that are going to help you understand. Now, this is too broad for me to speak maybe to answer your question particularly, and if you're the person who asked this question, if you have some more specifics, you can email us. I'd be happy to give you a little more detail on what you could be looking for. But you really want to be able to pay attention to your body and help with that. But overall, you want to just give your body the support. I'm always saying, well, what's the point? If you're going to get this lab done, but you're not going to change the support, sorry, there's a little bug in here, then what's the point? You just wasted all your money. And it would be better first to do those things that are going to support your body's endocrine system, support your body's ability to get rid of excess hormones and help balance it. Use your resources wisely and go towards that. Much more important to focus on using that time and energy to get yourself healthy as opposed to time and energy getting labs and then not doing anything about them. So do the right thing and let me know more specifically what you're looking for there. Okay, how do you balance with food if you have a lot of food sensitivity? And leaky gut is in parentheses there. This is a great question because a lot of people do have food sensitivities, and so you of course have to identify those foods that you can eat that are not going to create any type of sensitive situation. But if you have food sensitivities, if you have leaky gut, the most important thing, all of your energy and resources, in my opinion, should be going towards supporting your digestion. If you're having food sensitivities, almost always there is some level of low digestive capabilities, because what you're saying is leaky gut's happening because things are getting into the bloodstream through that leaky gut, and that has to do with the fact that your digestion is poor, it's weak, you don't have enough of a microbiome to keep that strong, and you probably almost definitely don't have sufficient stomach acid to fully break down the foods that are then getting and creating that problem, that sensitivity. In my experience, I've seen almost 100% correlation between food sensitivities and poor digestion. So we really want to make sure people understand, so important to rule out digestion before anything else. Otherwise you start chasing all of these different things and never getting to the root cause. And there are so many people with problems with digestion, and we've talked about this a lot, mostly because they're eating when they're stressed, they're diluting their stomach acid, they're eating things in greater quantities than their body's designed to do. There's so many reasons that support our understanding of why we have these digestive problems. It makes so much sense to start with making sure that you are supporting your digestion. There's a lot of things you can do for that. This is so important, in fact, that we have dedicated our next month's subscription box, the Strong and Health box, to digestion. And making sure that we've already figured out what are the things that I would do personally to support my digestion and get it up to the level that we need to help make sure you're absorbing and utilizing all the nutrients and the vitamins and minerals that you're trying to take to make yourself healthy. So I want you to think about asking more questions that are going to be in line with, well, what are the things that are maybe giving me signs that my digestion isn't off beyond the food sensitivity, so you know that's where you should focus your energy. But I did grab a little bit of a sample of what we have, and one of the things that we put in the box coming out is apple cider vinegar. This can be very, very helpful with people with digestive issues, and this is something that a lot of health gurus who are here talk about. That we found it in this cool little single serving that you can get out there. So that's something that maybe you want to add into your life, is a little bit of that. If you want to try this one out, that's why we have the box for you. Digestive bitters is something that I'm always telling people about, and King Floyd's actually is giving us some great samples in this one. So there's a few things you can do, just basic things to make sure that you're increasing your body's ability to digest, that I would start there with anybody with food sensitivities, and stick to those foods that are going to be the least offensive to you, of course, until you can start getting there further. It's a longer question, longer answer that I could go into for a long time, but I hope that helps you out with that question. The next one is there a nutritional way to manage stress? Great question. Of course, we always want to be supporting digestion, our whole body and its ability to manage stress. But what we have done actually is created here for people who are stressful, or maybe even getting into what we call adrenal fatigue, is a little do and don't list. And on here there are ways to eat better, and these are not just foods to eat, but like lifestyle ways to eat. So instead of eating your sugar and your caffeine and junk foods, eating whole, real, fresh food, of course, is going to help with stress management. Eating foods that combine your fats and proteins when you're eating carbs, instead of eating carbs by themselves, would be another thing that's on here. And actually, when people are really stressed, not skipping meals, making sure that you are eating a little bit every couple hours within your eating window so that you can take that easier. There's a lot of other lifestyle things. If you guys want a copy of this, just let us know. We'll send it to you so you have the whole list so you can focus on it. And I always recommend that people just choose one to master before you move on to the others. Don't try to do them all at once. Foods that are going to be helpful to help you manage stress, though, there's so many different ones. Raw nuts and seeds, you'll hear me say it so many times, because it's going to help you get those minerals that are going to help your body calm. You have to have the calming minerals, the calcium, the magnesium, and tryptophan is super important for your production of serotonin and melatonin. These are the things that are going to help calm you down. Raw nuts and seeds are going to be great. Cashews are a fantastic source of that. Today is Tuesday, which means it's Cashew Tuesday, which means that I ate my handful of cashews today. So every Tuesday I make sure I'm getting that in there to help give me what I need to stay calm and manage stress. I hope that helped answer your question. If you need some more details, again, let us know. Next question is, can menopause be reversed? That's a great question. So the answer to that, the quick answer is, I have seen it reversed many times, but that's not to say that like an appropriate menopause can be reversed, but a premature menopause. There's a big difference between those. And a lot of times there's a lot of stressors and a lot of things that are happening to people that are causing them to go into menopause prematurely. And in fact, I've had a lot of women get a little angry at me because they started working and they came back to cycling. They're like, I thought I was done with that. But that's not a bad thing. That means that your body's getting back to healthy to be able to do all the things that you needed to do. So not that it can be reversed, but if it was premature, yes, your body can get back online to get to the point where it's supposed to go with its natural course of going through those cycles. So that was a really good question. Okay, I've already talked about this question I had about avocados being bad for you, and I thought it was very interesting that the same person I spoke to at the hospital said that she tried the Daniel fast. She first said she was fasting, and I said, wow, a whole week of fasting, that's crazy, I couldn't do it. She goes, no, I wasn't fasting, I was just eating healthy for a week, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I hear that so many times, and I really want to help people understand that there are very simple little things that you can do to nudge yourself into making it easier. It doesn't have to be this super hard thing to be healthy. Again, we're always trying to find ways to make it as simple and easy as possible for you. That's the whole goal of that Strong on Health box, is to be able to give you little options that you can integrate into your life so you're slowly moving towards it instead of trying to do this overhaul that's like a Daniel fast that makes you believe that it's impossible and so hard to be healthy. There's always something you can do, and it depends on where you're at in your level, but you should always be acknowledging that it's really not that difficult to integrate small changes. As, I think it was maybe Ben Franklin said, tiny strokes fell mighty oaks. You want to do little bits at a time over time. That way it's more sustainable, as opposed to just trying to do everything all at once, and then you crash, and then you go back to the way you're doing it. The same thing with education. One of the doctors that I'm working with through the Strong Method actually said to me today, the reason I feel that this is successful for me is that you don't try to teach me everything all at once in a 12-hour session. You help me learn it, you make sure that I have an experience with it, and we slowly integrate these things, and then it becomes foundational to what they're doing going forward. Same thing with your health. You build it in until it becomes an absolute part of your health, and then you go to the next thing. Just like this list. You master one thing, and then you go on to the next thing so that you have it and it stays with you, and then it pays dividends through the rest of your life. This is really important to understand. Two more things really quickly. A question about a gentleman going in for a surgery, and his doctor told him to stop all supplements. And he said, ugh, can I do that? And the doctor said, well, because they're unregulated. I absolutely agree with this doctor. I think that we have to be careful about the supplements that we're taking because they are unregulated. Almost always you're going to hear me talk about whole foods, getting whole foods in there so you're getting it the way it's occurring in nature. And then, I mean, obviously the doctor's not going to tell you not to eat anything. You have to get your nutrition from food. And so this person was asking me, well, how can I make sure I'm getting those? And of course that is the goal of my life's work, to make sure that I'm satisfying all of my nutrient values through food throughout the day, and I do my best to share that with all of you to make it simple and easy. So I would definitely agree, if your doctor's telling you stop taking your supplements for a week or so before a procedure, absolutely, but make sure you're eating foods that are high in nutrition. You'll always hear me say to people when you're outside of keto to make sure you're getting a good variety of beans. I know that Dr. Gundry says that beans are the devil these days, but that goes back to the digestion thing. He's talking about the lectins in there. They're proteins. They should be getting digested if you have sufficient stomach acid. Back to why we're doing digestion next month. But my question to Dr. Gundry always is, how is it possible that the areas where people have the lowest rates of obesity, lowest rates of cancer, lowest rates of heart disease, they live the longest, the blue zones, how are they eating beans every day, but you're saying that beans are the worst thing for you? There's something missing, and that has to do with digestion. So a cup of black beans a day, a cup of kidney beans, a variety of beans is going to give you all kinds of nutrients that you're probably not getting in your diet as it is. Potassium and magnesium to be two of the biggest missing components in people's diets. A cup of avocado a day is going to satisfy a lot of that. And then again, those raw nuts and seeds, a handful or two every day, so that you're getting the variety of fibers, micronutrients, proteins, all of those. That is a great start. If you can do nothing else, integrate those three things, and that will support a lot of your health overall. And this goes to my final question. Last week I had, there's a doctor that I work with, and he calls occasionally with questions in specific, because sometimes it's hard to see things when it comes to your own health. And he's a 72-year-old doctor, and he had some concerns with a little bit of AFib. So he's having some irregular heart beats going on, and he's got a little bit of a couple concerns about his heart. And so my point to him was, can you confidently tell me that you are getting enough of that potassium and magnesium in your diet? And he said, you know, I take some potassium in a supplement, but perhaps I should do some more. And I absolutely agree, because we're utilizing those nutrients in excess, and we're doing a lot of things that are depleting those nutrients. So it is hyper important for us to make sure that we're getting a daily source of those absolute necessary components for our health. And for his knowledge and for his wife's knowledge, because she was concerned that he's going to have to go and get on a medication, I told him, examine the medications that you would be given if you did have AFib. And the interesting thing, when you look at those, they're all about making sure that there are going to be potassium and calcium and sodium, these nutrients that your heart actually needs. And yes, I just said sodium. One of them has to do with that. You do need it. It's just that we get excess amounts of it, and sometimes it offsets the potassium. So we have to get that potassium and magnesium in there, and whole foods is going to be the best way. So I already told him a cup a day of both of those, and then let me know in a month what changes. And you'd be amazed at how many times I've told people to do that, and so many things I'll all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, I'm not worried about that anymore, because they got their potassium and magnesium up. And when you do this, if you live a lifestyle over 70 years and you're slowly just under your potassium needs, it's going to take its toll on you long term. You want to get that back in there. Remember, those are really important for the heart. And if you just examine what medicine would be trying to do with their medicine to help with that, you can help that along, or take a note from that to go, well, it has a lot to do with potassium and magnesium and calcium. Maybe I should just make sure that I have enough of that in my body to see if my body can handle that too. Always listen to your doctor, but think about it at a higher level and understand what they're doing. Ask them questions. What is this doing for me, doctor? Is there something else I can do to support this? And I cannot wait to report back to you what I hear from this doctor after he has done that for a little while. Okay, I think that's all we have time for. Oh, one last question, sorry. Now this question from David asking, if going to the bathroom too much, urinating 5.5 liters in 24 hours can cause him to lose some electrolytes after consuming only 3 liters. Now, if you're losing more than you're taking in, then there's probably something your body is trying to get out. The solution to pollution is dilution. So your body is going to try to get things out that way a lot of times. Now, that could be a lot of things, and you may want to discuss that with your healthcare provider. But if you are eliminating that much, yes, I would be very mindful of making sure that your body's getting the electrolytes it needs so that you are utilizing the hydration as it's coming in. A lot of times if you're drinking a distilled water or a purified water, you're throwing that into the system without any minerals, without any electrolytes, and that can actually create an imbalance. It's not how it occurs in nature. So make sure you're getting that in what you're drinking so that you can get fully satisfied. Okay, tons of information, and for those of you who didn't get your questions answered, I will definitely get to them next week. I'll do 5 more from the Dr. Schipple event. Please share this information if you found it helpful, and let your friends know that this is an option for them to ask some questions about their health overall. Thursday is going to be all things keto. We're still answering questions for ITS and their keto challenge, so keep some keto questions coming in, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for watching, guys.